Aloha everyone, Ronnie Landis here, and welcome to another edition of the official Ronnie Landis podcast show. And I'm also the founder of the Holistic Health Mastery Nutrition Certification course, and you can find more information about that at www.holistichealthmastery.com. My personal website is also www.ronnie, R-O-N-N-I-E, _landis.com. Just want to put that information out there for anyone that wants to find more about what I'm doing, my books, my educational course, courses in progress right now, more courses, and all the different stuff that I'm up to. You can check out those links. Want to get that out of the way so we can move on to today's incredible show. So my guest was one of the brightest lights that I actually know personally in my life, and someone that I have so much respect for, someone whose journey I've watched personally from the other side of a computer screen and also up close more recently for, the last 7 years, I think. Dan McDonald, otherwise known as the Life Regenerator, has had one of the most influential, inspiring, motivating, empowering, and educational YouTube video series on raw living foods, on juicing, on detoxification, on living a more inspired life through authenticity, vulnerability. I mean, he has put his entire story over the last decade or so, or maybe almost that, on YouTube. Over 2,000 YouTube videos, and one of the highest subscriber rates and just viewerships in the I guess you could say the history of raw food education on the internet. So anyways, this interview was epic. This was incredible. Dan and me have become very close personal friends here on Kauai, and we knew about each other, many years ago. We had bumped into each other and kind of become associates here and there, but we've really become friends as of recently, and this guy lives it. He has lived it. He is on his own mission, his dharma, and raw living foods is still very much a major foundation to that. And there's so much I could say about this guy. This interview was so deep and so powerful, and it just cut to the core of everything. And for some of you who have been following Dan McDonald for years, you may have noticed that he had stopped posting YouTube videos as of recently, the last year and a half. And I had just been encouraging him to get back on the scene. All our conversations would be these incredible philosophical, health-based, strategic conversations that I just was like, wow, dude, you need to come over to my outdoor office here where I do all my work and my interviews, usually by Skype, and sit down with me for a one-on-one. So I'm so happy that we made the time to do this, and I know you will be too. Without further ado, I want to introduce the Life Regenerator, Dan McDonald. Dan the Man, otherwise known as the Life Regenerator, is a certified detoxification specialist and has been studying plant-based nutrition for over the last 15 years. Dan has had over 1,500 free videos on his Life Regenerator YouTube channel that are based around raw food nutrition, juicing, detoxification, fitness, and spirituality. He has been a tremendous inspiration and guide in helping people to take responsibility for their health in the simplest and most natural way, with the food we eat. With over 202,500 subscribers and over 34 million video views, he has truly made an impact on the health and well-being of people's lives all over the world. Dan's magnetic personality and true passion for regenerating every cell within his own body has made his show on YouTube contagious and inspiring ministry for those who are seeking the highest levels of health nutrition. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thank you, Ronnie.
Absolutely. Such a pleasure to have you on. How are you?
Very well. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I feel like the best place to get started with us is, how did you get started? I mean, you've been at this for, almost 2 decades, right? And traveling down the raw food path and your own journey in health and cleansing and finding out what has been the best of the best for you personally and sharing that with the world. So I think everyone's probably curious, what got Dan McDonald started?
Well, I guess the linear story would be around the time of being 19 years old. My girlfriend broke up with me, and hence there was extra testosterone in the system. Mm-hmm. So what does a young man do but join the YMCA? So I started lifting weights to do something with that energy that I now found myself with, and to try to help myself cope with that heartbreak that came from breaking up with my girlfriend at the time. And I just started lifting weights, and after that I started looking into how to build muscle, and it kind of just snowballed from there, and that was basically the beginning of this journey into conscious health. Before that, there wasn't any awareness of health in any way, shape, or form, really. Actually, in fact, I was on the other side of the scale, doing everything that a human being could possibly do to not be healthy.
Right, which is what most of us kind of get trapped in, right?
Oh, well, I don't think they go to this level of depth that I was at the time, with severe addictions to many different types of drugs and alcohol, cigarettes, et cetera, et cetera. And, since then, just sort of working my way out of that and doing everything I can to get to the core of some kind of mystery that I've been experiencing from the very beginning of my life. Now that I look back as a conscious person, I can look back and trail it all the way back to birth, and at an even higher level of consciousness prior to birth, through parenting, genetics, family lineages,
right,
social, constructs and that type of thing. So,
Okay, so it sounds like you got really what was like the immediate impetus, or what was the thing that you got gravitated towards, was changing your body, like fitness, getting in your body maybe. And then what was that light bulb that you realized that food played some part in this transformation?
Well, that light bulb, I think, came on 5 or 6 years later.
Okay.
When I really, truly had a download. I was like, Muscle Blast, protein powder, dog food bags.
The big buckets.
Bags and ice cream and milk and cheese and meat. And over the years, through reading the beans and rice books and looking a little bit into vegetarianism, but always referencing the Muscles and Fitness magazines, and just slowly over time, it began to show itself as more of the vegetarian choices might be more conscious, and of course healthier meats and things like that, but always still not having enough awareness to avoid fast food every once in a while. But when it came to the bodybuilding training, that was what was really cool. That's one of the things I really like about myself, is that I remember one of the trainings, the certifications that I went to for personal training certification, and there was all this class of 50 people or something like that, and we're all in there training to get certified. Well, I was already in the bodybuilding game at the time. I made it to about 200 pounds on my body, so add another 40 pounds to where I am now of pure muscle, you know.
Wow.
So that was really cool. I looked really good on the outside, and I could lift heavy weights. But of course, later on, you learn that your organs and your brain and your nerves and your glands and everything are affected in what real health is.
Right.
But, you know, I just began to evolve more and more into healthier food choices. And here I am now at an absolute loss as to what is really, really happening inside the human organism and what real, true healing is and what's going on with human beings at the level of, I mean, this guy over here eats meat and potato chips and drinks and smokes, and he never gets cancer. And then this person over here is eating broccoli and brown rice, and they're in the hospital with some kind of leukemia or cancer diagnosis. So the nutritional wars are beginning to lose their luster. I'm beginning to become a lot less emotionalized about these strong, rigid beliefs, vegans versus paleo versus we're cavemen versus we're monkeys versus we're human beings. And I'm looking for real, deeper answers. So when all the rest of my colleagues have all the answers, all I have is a notebook full of many more questions.
Questions, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. It's such an interesting thing. I think we definitely have a real strong resonance just very simply on the idea that I know for me, one of the things that detoured me from using my voice, and now I've really come more into my own being as far as a speaker and as a voice for a message, but not necessarily for the message or this message, but it's becoming a message and whatever that message wants to be in any given time. I was really disillusioned too about the whole vegan propaganda versus the paleo propaganda and the raw food propaganda and the cooked food propaganda and the whatever. Like at one point, I got so tripped out on the whole thing because it wasn't so much to me about the diet as much as like the disturbed behavior in defending a diet that I saw. I was like, wait a minute, whoa, because I had studied all the great success orators like Anthony Robbins and Jim Rohn and all those guys. So I had a lot of the psychology 101 built into me. So when I saw this kind of like weird, neurotic and very vicious behavior in the diet world, I was like, one thing clicked for me. I was like, whatever they're doing, they don't appear to be healthy because their attitude is off. So I wanted to find out, like, okay, well, if you're consuming a certain nutritional approach, that should affect your behavior, that should affect your mind in a way where you become happier. And that's kind of what I'm looking at is like, if it doesn't translate into more like effervescent joy, something's got to be off. Have you found that for yourself in your own journey?
Well, we can trace a lot back into the programming in childhood.
Right.
And these diet wars tend to be just a manifestation of that. One thing you'll find with religious fervor, say a Christian who's really trying to cram it down your throat, it's really, or even, and in the diet as well, these people are really actually trying to convince themselves. Once you know something, you're just as happy to be silent about it and hold that treasure in your heart and utilize that. And if it's really working for someone, you'll be magnetizing people to you to ask you the questions because you will be reverberating that joy that is the underlying desire of all human beings, that childlike joy, that happiness. And so now that I look back on this journey of using the nutrition, and then particularly raw foods and fasting, was that it was just a desire to increase awareness so that I could perceive the deeper underlying occlusions. And the diet and the bad dieting and the crappy food is just the manifestation of an underlying lack of self-love, self-care, and self-awareness. So generally, people are aware on one level or another that something's not quite right. There's more potential for more joy, more abundance, more happiness, more power, more energy, more strength, more beauty. And they begin to look into nutrition, and they begin to look into all the various areas of life that they can utilize to improve, or to get down into and become aware of the conditioning. And that's why the nutrition, and that's how and why the nutrition can be useful, because clean, clear blood can be very helpful to keep the mind clear so that one can meditate on one's self and become aware of what they're magnetizing into their life. And hopefully what I find a lack of sometimes is what they're putting out into this world. You know, you're putting out what's inside of you, that conditioning, that childlike conditioning. And you'll notice within all stratospheres of human desire to increase knowledge or teachings or spiritual teachings is that a lot of people have felt a lack of love in their life. Not everyone, but even the best parents may not have been tapped into the highest levels of divine love. So a child would they would receive that love and that nurturing if their behavior was appropriate to the conditioning of the parent. So this conditioning just goes on, and then the conditional love, and then sometimes even the parent's inability to love that child. And so all these different, it's sort of like, hey man, your diet and all this and everyone's fighting, but it's like your obstructions are different than mine. Your unconscious mental obstructions are different than mine. And so I think when people get to another level of expanded awareness, they can quit being pissed off at the other person for eating animals or whatever it is that they're doing that they disagree with. And you know, world fixers are not my favorite people, because you really do fix the entire world when you fix yourself. Right. When you become the love. And so that's where this one is at in this journey now, is just love as the answer, because I believe that, for example, the parasites can't live in that love blood. Your heart becomes a resonating magnet, and everyone has a different experience. Some people can really receive love and really receive it, and they're open to it and they crave it and they can get it in, but they can't let it, they can't do any, they can't give it away. They don't have any to really give. And then there's other people that can give and give and give and give love to the best of their ability by making conscious choices of what is the loving choice. The loving choice is to go pick up my grandma at the bus station, even though I don't want to, because my friends are going to go down to the beach and go surfing. Right. But I'm going to make the loving choice and go pick up my grandma, that intellectual type of choosing. And then there's the ones that are truly blessed, that are able to allow love in, they're able to allow love out. The negativity doesn't affect them. They can see through it through the eyes of understanding, through that higher level of perception. I call it Christ consciousness, where the person can be yelling at you, and yet you're so stable in who you are and your awareness of love that even if they're putting you down, and even if they rob you, like they can rob you, and you can be so tapped into that field that you can forgive them, because you can see that for them to want to rob you, they're lacking everything that matters in life, the joy, the happiness, the solidity, the peace, the ease, and the grace, and the fulfillment of abundance within their experience. They're lacking so much that they have to take from you to have a temporary lift, which is only going to last for a minute until the drugs are gone or whatever, or the money's been spent, or the shopping spree is over and your credit card gets canceled, that, you know, you feel sorry for them. They robbed you and you feel sorry for them. That, and you feel pity and empathy. That's love. That is what I like to call, for ease of reference, Christ consciousness, for ease of, reference for the people in our society,
Very well put. There's a lot of incredible nuggets in there, a lot of amazing insights, and I tend to agree with all of that. We could totally expand that. One direction I want to go in this is that, in reflection to everything you said, and that being a reflection of kind of my original point, being that your nutrition strategy, or any of we'll call it a nutrition strategy, just as a term for our fuel supply, if you will, using food as a fuel supply and not putting such a grandiose, definition on it like we tend to do and charge it so much. I'm curious, how has your nutrition strategy changed? Let's just say when you first were getting started, and then when you first started putting videos out there and everything like that. Like, how has it changed for you? Just in maybe the simplicity of it, and also how do you feel that's affected you over the years?
Well, I used to have all the answers. I'm still a raw foodist, a raw vegan, and that's working for me. But like you said, the simplicity part, since this journey has brought me to, and I know that there's an infinite number of roads that people are going down, but in this journey, the desire for mental clarity is really the top priority. So what I've found, I definitely know how to stimulate the body. I definitely know how to eat carbs. I know how to eat protein. I know how to eat fats. I know how to gain weight. I know how to lose weight. I know how to alkalinize the system, keep the colon clean, keep the breath fresh, keep the eyes clear. Right now, what I've found in this journey that I can reference from is that mental clarity, is that simplicity. Like, food combining is out. It's like I don't even combine. I mean, I feel best when I just eat mono meals, really. And so that's about probably 50 to 60% of my diet is just mono meals and mono juices. And then I use a good variety of green juices where I might want to get some more greens in there with cilantro and moringa. And I like to use turmeric and ginger and apples. I use as much local as I can. One of the things that I really love about this nutrition journey is freshly picked food. If we want to talk nutrition and say, what's your number one nutritional advice? It would be locally grown, freshly picked food. Obviously, tree to mouth is the best, or ground to mouth. Mm-hmm. But if I go and I get some oranges that were picked yesterday or the day before, they're still vibrating at that level with the concentrated sunlight energy, which I think the scientists call it now the negative hydrogen. It's the sunlight. It's the antioxidant power, which is really just basically, again, it comes back to the way I see that, is that that's just nature's love concentrated for the living animals and organisms around. So the orange is concentrated love light. Mm-hmm. And when that is picked, the roots, the grounding, the sunlight hitting the greens, and then the negative and the positive, or the masculine and the feminine energy concentrating into that juicy, sweet fruit with lots of, soil activity, seems to have a huge impact on the flavor of the food and the nutritional quality. So really the freshly picked food that has that electricity, seems to really keep the zeta potential really high, so that it keeps the blood just thin, so that you've got that circulation making it to all parts of the brain, all parts of the heart. The thyroid is getting circulation. The adrenals are getting circulation. The GI tract is getting good blood flow, extraction, utilization. It's really come down to, as I've studied like the vaccines and the damaging effects of the vaccines, and how it's creating this autism issue, or that's one of the issues that's bringing up the autism. I'm just looking at circulation. So that freshly picked food, again, is just keeping the blood thin, alkalinized, the sugars in there for the brain, and the chlorophyll to carry that oxygen deeply into the tissues, so that, one of the biggest issues that we're seeing from all the stress is the occlusions in the blood vessels. And so, that's just leading to, necrosis in certain parts of, especially the brain, is under attack in our society today. And I think what I've also done, interestingly enough, and I don't know if you thought about this or not, but the watershed areas in the brain have been studied for higher levels of consciousness. But also, I have been kind of, as I was in the bathtub one day, I thought, well, maybe there's even watershed areas in the heart that can help the heart to become more magnified, more effulgent.
I came across that too. You had mentioned watersheds before we went to the beach, like maybe a month ago. And I was like, wow, what a concept. So I started doing my own research, just a little bit here and there. And our circulatory and primarily the heart matrix has watersheds. So the dual supply of arteries or ventricle channels for blood to not pump, but to flow through. So if one of those arteries goes out, or one of those passageways, I like to say, goes out, there's a backup one, right, to come right in its place.
Yeah. And that's for the more, creation and its intelligence in the more important areas of the brain and the heart and the body.
Right.
And so that it just, in case of an emergency or in case of a stroke or an occlusion, an embolism of some type, then there's that backup, and the organism gets to continue to live, instead of, if everything was just a one flow system, people would die. There'd be a lot more, we wouldn't live as long.
Right.
So now,
which is a very interesting idea, because all the reasons why we develop atherosclerotic plaque and stroke and heart disease and cholesterol oxidation, these are all man-made symptoms. This isn't because of any natural degeneration. These are actually the byproducts of man-made activities, whether it be through excessive food or processed food, or stress is a huge one. So it's interesting to me that the body would have a built-in backup system in the first place,
for the more important areas.
Yeah.
But that's why I think that not many of us see those illuminated levels of health that I think that people like you and I would like to see, because you have to have blood flow to those areas that are associated with higher consciousness, better memory, and genius, really. To, the blood is flowing through those micro capillaries, which are thinner than a hair. Only one red blood vessel gets through. So any type of stress, trauma, excesses in the diet, or even what I call dead foods,